Thanks to all the people for connecting. We are starting the webinar focusing on the city of Lisbon. First of all, let me introduce quickly the agenda. So first there will be me introducing a little bit Tondo and talking also about measuring circularity at city level and introducing why we are talking after about the Portugal and specifically about Lisbon. After me, there will be Andreia, that is the founder of one of the founders of Circular Economy Portugal, and after it there will be a Q&A session. So briefly about me, I have a background in business, and in the last 2 years I've been working on circular economy topics. So I first decided to create Tondo. Tondo is a non-profit organization focusing on circular economy, trying to create a bridge between university, startup, corporates, institutions, and people. What we do, we focus mainly in 3 areas. One is about knowledge. So we favor the diffusion of the knowledge regarding the circular economy through our social media, through our podcast, through our webinars like this one. But we also develop knowledge about the circular economy. So we are working on a couple of reports, focusing one on mapping circular startup in Italy and another one more on the textile industry. And also we offer classes, different kind of classes on this topic. We are also an ecosystem actor. So how we favor the development of the ecosystem through Rethink mainly. That is our event to showcase solution about the circular economy. But we're also an open organization, so everyone can join, become a volunteer or an associate of Tondo, and work on what we are doing, but especially on projects. And so we are open to projects that can be submitted by people that want to work with us, or people that are part of the association that have an entrepreneurial idea or a specific project on the circular economy. If we think is aligned to our mission, we try to work on it. At the moment, we are focusing on a project on cigarettes butt and on a broader point of view on littering, and another one that is focusing on coffee grounds, how to use coffee waste. On top of Tondo, we are working more creating an ecosystem why leveraging different kind of instruments. Why we think it's important, because we are in a very critical moment for our society. So we think we need to accelerate as much as possible this transition to a circular economy. So we do it with Tondo, that is no profit, mainly focusing on people, research institute, public institution. And on top of that, we have Rethink, that is our instrument to create engagement on different topics of circular economy. But also on top of that, to showcase solution. But also on top of that, we just created Tondo Lab, that is a benefit organization that is created by the Tondo team mainly to support also corporates. How we do it? We usually do it by measuring circularity. So we assess the circularity level of product and processes. We also support through workshops to define new ideas on circular economy, but also we offer educational classes. So after we design this solution and we evaluate them in different kind of ways, and so we think we understand what are the best projects to implement, and after we also support in the implementation. In the implementation, probably we also support by matching it through with other actors that can be also startups or other actors inside the supply chain that can offer circular solution. And on top of that, we also support in the communication activities for the people that wants to implement a circular path. So this is Tondo. The last point about Tondo that I want to highlight, that we are mainly an ecosystem actor. So we have many different kind of contacts on the circular economy internationally, like Circular Economy or circular change or exchange for change. But on top of that, we also have contact with different other kind of organization, from startups to other kind of hub, from and also the no-profit. What we do, we try really to connect the dots, really to support the implementation of the circular economy. So let's focus now on the topic of today, that is circular cities. So why circular cities? Mainly because most of the population is already living, and more will be living by 2050. The estimation are that 65% of the population will live in the city. Of course, by having most of the population is also the place where most of the GDP is created. 85% of the GDP is created inside city, but at the same time, it's also where most of the resources are consumed, and most of the waste is produced, and also the emission. So the cities have to become the place, let's say, the driver for this change toward a circular economy. And so a city, so following this definition by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, a circular city embeds the principle of a circular economy. And in this way, an urban system is creating an urban system that is regenerative and restorative by design. In such a city, there is not the concept of waste, and all the assets are used to the highest level of utilities at the whole time. Also using digital technologies as an important enabler for this transition. And so in a circular city, there is a kind of decoupling, so the coupling resource consumption from generating prosperity and growth and wealth for their own citizen. So moving a step forward from the definition, if we want to usually analyze a city, there are many different studies focusing on that. We can say that there are 6 macro area, or even sometimes 7 or 8, depends on the study, that most of the study are focusing in the moment where they're trying to understand how much a city is circular. So of course, one element is the energy. So what kind of energy is being used inside the cities? Of course, a circular city should use clean energy. Another very important topic is regarding the water and waste. And water can be how the infrastructure in which you're receiving the water is working, so how efficient is the system, but also how you are managing the water that is after has been used in the apartments or in companies. And after, there is all the how you are managing the waste in general. So of course, there are still cities are generating 1.3 billion tons of solid waste. Of course, there are many strategies in order to optimize the waste, increasing the recycling rate of different waste streams. Another really relevant topic is regarding the buildings and how you are managing your assets in order to make the most, so you use them in the most efficient way on at any point of view, the energetic heat, but also the way in which you are constructing these buildings. The other important area is all regarding transportation, how you move inside a city. Of course, having an electric shared system can be a way to not pollute and to utilize the asset at the highest level. The other important flow is regarding the food, how the food is arriving inside the system, inside the city, how is managed, how is consumed, and after how you are treating the waste coming from the food itself. Last point is regarding, let's say, the consumer product, or let's say some are talking about consumer products or production of products. If you think about it, there are really nice new studies that are thinking about producing the goods inside the city itself and using them in a loop continuously, so that the materials remain inside the city and they are not coming from really far away from different kind of supply chains. Why measuring the city? So the focus of today is measuring circular economy, and I really think that the measuring the circular economy is the first step in towards really implementing the circular economy itself, because it gives you an awareness of what is the actual status of the circular economy, and what are the opportunities. Of course, make the case, so understanding what can be the possible business cases that you can implement in order to increase your circularity level, and so also trigger the specific action related to that, and also to monitor the performance, so define the KPIs that are relevant for you in order to understand how much you are improving. So to measure the circularity of a city, usually there are 3 levels. One is a micro level, another one is a meta level, and after there is a macro level. So the micro is the first one, usually is regarding a company, a building, a citizen. So it's a small unit, let's say. A meso is where we are focusing in this specific webinar. So is an aggregation of subjects that can be companies, network, and neighborhood, or a city. And finally, macro level is a regional, national, or international level. So going back to the 6 pillars I was talking before, so just to give you an idea, and after I suggest you to go more in deep into this study by the University of Naples, where we took most of the reference for these kind of indicators. So one way to measure the circularity of a city is to define a set of indicators for the different area that we have highlighted in order to really start measuring it. So for example, on an energy point of view, you can understand what is the percentage of renewable energy that the city is using, or the amount of emissions coming from the energy sector. At the same time, you can also start measuring the energy saving that you are getting through different kind of action that you can generate at city level. On the waste side, of course, the first way is to understand the recycling rate for each waste stream, how much tap water is used on a water level. The other point is how much water is wasted through the infrastructure, and also understanding the hazardous, the traceability, if there is, of any kind of dangerous kind of waste. On the building level, you can analyze the percentage of degraded buildings. Of course, buildings that are abandoned is definitely a problem inside the city for different kind of reasons, and also the reduction in emission due to cleaner and smarter building logistic. Another important metric can be the percentage of construction works with circular design. On the transportation, you can consider the energy consumption referred to the transport sector on a general point of view, or you can analyze the percentage of fossil-free vehicles versus normal one, or the percentage of eco car powered by different kind of sources like biogas, hydrogen. On the food side, you can analyze the percentage of sustainable food, so less impactful for the environment. In general, the amount of bio waste used in the compost, and other example is also food waste avoided through a circular consumption. For example, using an app that is giving you the opportunity to sell goods that otherwise you had to throw away. On the consumer goods, you can consider another set of indicator that the use of recycled goods in industrial production, or unsold products recovered every day for redistribution, or the use of sustainable materials. In any case, these are just example of metrics that can be used. There are many more, so we just took a few. And every city, so this study is analyzing different kind of projects where they try to measure the circularity level of different kind of cities. Of course, when you do that, you also need to understand how much is the value of each indicator. So the complex side is a little bit on this part. So how you create the final number. And so that can be there can be a certain degree of subjectivity based on the city. So a city can consider more important specific stream, more important a specific indicator. And so this can vary by city to city. And this makes sometimes difficult a comparison between cities. Another areas that can be used in measuring the city is all the parts regarding economic, social, and process. Of course, on top of the previous one, it's also important to understand the impact on an economic level of certain kind of activity, or the waste management cost, or the saving that are coming to the public sector through an improved waste management. On the social side is also to understand, okay, the impact on the population of certain kind of activities, because probably you want to stop certain activities that are polluting in some way, but of course, by closing them, you can create a problem on the city level, because after that, many people are unemployed. And so at the same time, you should create these policies that are supporting first the creation of new jobs or the reskilling of these jobs. So all the social side can also be very important in this kind of evaluation. And plus, there is also the analysis of the process. So when you start defining the action, it's also important that you define the stakeholders or the actors that can be involved in this kind of projects, and also evaluate what their involvement. So here we put some kind of key metrics that you can use. On top of that, of this kind of approach to measuring circularity, I want to also refer to the material flow analysis. This is something we already talked in a previous webinar, so I suggest you to go to look at it. So material flow analysis is quite used by Circular Economy. They have done it for different kinds of cities, and it's very interesting because it's making an analysis of the material input and output, and also understanding the stream of waste. So by understanding the waste and where it's generating, so it's also giving a certain indicator. So it's giving you a precise number. So the city is circular 10%, 15%, or 5%. And it's giving you also indicating you certain specific areas where you can make action, where you can define projects in order to improve the circularity of your city. In this analysis, we want to ally especially all the part regarding the imports. And in this way, you can also see that most of the import are creating greenhouse emission, because it's related to the petrol that this specific city was importing, that was partially used to generate energy and partly used to for product production. And in this way, you can see the part of the circular economy that is tackling another part of the emission that is more related to specific products, so not only to energy consumption. In any case, the last point I want to highlight that by moving a city to increase the circularity of the city is a very complex matter. And it needs to create the involvement of different kind of actor, and is mainly starting at city management level, of course. So it's usually start so in this I want to focus on this tool of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. So it's talking about by first of all defining a vision, so for like the city of Amsterdam was talking about, they want to become totally circular by 2050. And so in this way, you create a vision, you create a roadmap, you create a strategy. On top of that, you have some other elements that, of course, you have to work on after you have defined a vision. So that is the engagement. So how you raise awareness, how you create capacity, how you work on by creating partnership. And this one, an element is that has been seen in different kind of areas, especially in the Netherlands, but also in the Nordics lately, is creating this hotspot. This is a little bit the action that we are also doing with Rethink. So showcasing solutions, putting companies together. So in this way, you show possible paths that can be implemented. After, there is all the elements of the urban management, so the urban planning or asset management of the municipality. That usually a municipality has a lot of assets, of course. By making them first circular, the city government has a lot of power, and plus there is all the part regarding public procurement, especially in Italy, but in many countries there is still an important leverage in order to improve circularity, because you can request certain kind of scores, certain kind of materials that can increase the circularity level of the city, of an area. Plus, there are all the economic incentives, like Europe has done with the Horizon, and there are many others. And plus, you have regulation. For example, you can ban a certain product, you can ban mono-use plastic. So with all these elements together, of course, you can favor the shift toward you can transform a city and make it circular. And of course, another important point I want to highlight, this is more at the city and government level. Of course, it is very important that the city and government level collaborates with NGOs, with corporates, and any other organization, really in order to implement all these activities together, because I think it's really a shift that requires the involvement of all the actors inside the city. So now moving on the topic we want to focus today, that is Lisbon. So why we choose Lisbon in a way, because, and starting from the Portugal, so the Portugal set the Circular Economy Action Plan that in Portugal by 2017-2020, where Portugal wanted to target to become a carbon neutral economy by 2050. They wanted mainly to focus on knowledge, the meaning on innovation, research to support this transition, aligned to what also the European Union is trying to do. Also, they want to push more a resilient economy, so also focusing on a local economy, and also involving different kind of actors, favoring also the lower kind of category inside a society. In particular, Lisbon was the green capital of Europe in 2020. Why they became part of it? Because they put in place different kind of activities that Andreia will explain more after, focusing on the energy efficiency, on water efficiency, on urban biodiversity, and on waste, and in general on circular economy. So let now Andreia introduce a little bit more of what I've talked about Portugal, and more specifically about Lisbon. Thank you, Andreia, for being with us, and I'll let you share the screen as well.
All right, thanks a lot, Francesco. So I will start sharing the screen immediately. I think it should be working now. Yes. So as Francesco introduced, I will be focusing on the city of Lisbon and what have been some recent developments in terms of circularity and sustainability. I will talk a lot indeed about the year of 2020 and the award that the city received as European Green Capital. This was certainly an important recognition of the efforts and achievements of the city in terms of its ecological concerns. So, yes. But first, let me tell you some basic facts about Lisbon. So it's a medium-sized city with 500,000 inhabitants. Of course, with the people who every day flow into the city to work, this increases to 1 million. And the city is also surrounded by a number of other smaller cities. And so the whole area is about 3 million inhabitants. It's important to say that tourists play an important role in the city, especially in recent economic development of the city. This has been a major factor, actually, in recovering from the previous financial crisis. Of course, the whole pandemic situation put a halt on all this. But the way the city grew recently is a lot connected to this new economic revenue stream of tourism. So at the same time, I would like to show you a bit like the backyards of Lisbon that tourists usually don't see and that don't show up in the beautiful postcards. So the city has a lot of areas which are not as beautiful and not as developed. A lot of scars, let's call it like that, because some parts of the city have evolved in a way and others were left behind. And so this shows how unequal the city is socially, but also in terms of patrimony. And I brought examples of this district of Marvila in eastern Lisboa, where you can see, for instance, on the image on the right, you see this gate. This is like the remains of property of aristocracy. So this part of Lisbon was in some time ago, some decades ago, actually composed of rural areas, fields. And what remains today is something like this, just an abandoned field and a gate which is falling apart. You also see remains of industrial activity that has also left the city center. And in the middle, you see the way that people residing in this district also appropriated the empty space of all these activities that no longer are. So this is like empty land that has been, well, people built these enclosures that you see and created urban gardens where they plant stuff also as a way to provide for themselves with extra food. So this is Lisbon as well, and it's important that one is aware of these aspects of the city. So other important facts is that the city of Lisbon lies on the estuary of river Targus, and this is a quite particular natural area, quite important. So this is where the sweet water of the river meets the sea, so it mixes with the salted water and it creates an ecosystem which is very important for water life, fish and crustaceans, but especially for birds. So this area, particularly here, this estuary, is an important spot in migration routes along the Atlantic. So from birds that migrate from Northern Europe to Northern Africa or even further. And so this area is important as a stop to get food, to rest for these birds. The city is facing some climate change challenges, well, related to water a lot, with, first of all, with the rising sea level, and to the scarcity of rainfall that we expect to happen and increase in the next decades, which will of course be quite challenging, along with an increase of temperature. So we will have less waterfall, meaning rainfall overall, And when it happens, it's going to be more sudden, more intense, and this also has consequences on city planning, as we will see further. Another important fact about the city, and then I will move on to other things, is the fact that within the city there is a quite large forest park. So you see on the satellite picture all that green area. So this is an actual forest in the middle of the city. It's definitely a great asset, a treasure to have such a large park in the city of Lisbon. So as Francesco already told you, Lisbon was the European Green Capital last year. It was a really bad year to be green capital or to do anything, because of course the pandemic kind of destroyed all the program that Lisbon had prepared with events and awareness raising campaigns. So this was all this had to be a lot of it had to be cancelled, but still, I mean, the more structural ideas that were connected to this green capital are underway, and we will talk about them, and they are really quite interesting. But it's important also to say, why did Lisbon receive this award of European Green Capital? So on the one hand is because of the achievements that Lisbon managed to have in recent years, actually starting from, let's say, beginning 2000, the advancements have been quite steep in terms of environmental performance. One major aspect, it's water efficiency. So Lisbon managed to implement a water management system that allows it to be quite efficient in terms of water use, and to actually be one of the most efficient cities in the world in terms of water use. So there are little losses in the system. On the other hand, the carbon dioxide emissions have lowered quite a lot. There's been also good developments in terms of waste management. So separate collection is much higher than the average in the rest of the country. The recycling rate is also higher and has improved a lot in these two last decades. So all of these achievements, let's say, put Lisbon in the spotlight. But alongside these achievements, there's also the commitment for the future, the ambitions that the city showcases and shows commitment towards, which also were, let's say, prized in the attribution of this Green Capital Award. Well, the whole country, as Francesco already mentioned, has assumed this commitment of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. Lisbon also wants to make great steps in terms of mobility, reducing car travel and becoming an example somehow by 2030. Let's see if they manage, because I believe that in that respect, there's still a lot to be done. We will talk about that later as well. So in terms of the green spaces, there's also a lot of ambition to make these grow. In waste treatment, there's still a long way to go in terms of the separate collection and recycling rate, although improvements have been good. And in water, although I spoke of this water efficiency in Lisbon's water network, one negative point is that there was basically almost no water reuse happening in the city, and that is also going to change. It's already changing. So the year started beautifully with a great event in which residents were invited to come and plant some trees. This was the very first day of the Green Capital. We participated. You can see me, my husband, and my son. I allow myself to show our presence at this event because, well, I think there's no greater symbol than planting a tree to start a beautiful green year. And well, it all went very well. In that day, people planted 20,000 new trees in different parts of the city. And there's a lot, as you can see a bit by the landscape here, these are very new parks that were actually just abandoned land. And they are slowly being turned into parks, being made available for people to enjoy. And this culture of green spaces, of being outside and just enjoying these green spaces and using them for sports, etc., is something. It's something that was not so much in our culture some years ago, but it's growing very well lately. And definitely the municipality is making a good effort in that respect. So this part, the care for the green infrastructure and the whole logic of how it is planned and how it is made available and how it is supposed to grow, is I think the most interesting aspect of the whole municipality's policy in terms of the green ambitions of the city. So on the left, you see this photo of urban gardens in Lisbon. So this is a really important aspect of the policy in how the city is approaching the green areas. So one of the lines of development is really to make more gardening plots available for everyone. This is really very popular, and people from all places in the city and all kinds of social conditions are interested in managing plots and growing vegetables. And so this is something that the city is doing, which is organizing places that for the time being are just no man's land, organizing, creating infrastructure, water, electricity, and making it available for people to care themselves. So on the right, you see another interesting strategy, which is to bring in sheep as a way to maintain the city's parks. This is an experience. If it goes well, it can be replicated in other parks that share the same characteristics as this one you see here. Using animals has multiple benefits, as it also provides fertilizer directly as the terrain is being maintained, which is a very good thing. So here you see a structural project for Lisbon at this point. It already started. So you see this important, let's say, car hub in the city, Praça de Espanha. That's what it is now, but actually construction already started to de-pave all this area and transform it into something like what you see on the right, which is a park with a lot of water and no cars. So traffic will be reduced and will go around a park that then will be connected through, how do you say, like bridges for pedestrians. It will be, well, it will implement these very interesting concepts of always connecting through ways for cyclists, for pedestrians, connecting green areas to other green areas, and creating this possibility to just walk or cycle throughout the city, which in a way that you never have to come and share the space with cars. So this is a good development, a good approach, I think, in terms of urban planning. So along this deep paving that I just told you about, this is all also connected to a whole vision for the city, which is about this creating green corridors. So these continuum of green where you can walk or cycle through, and by creating these you also connect the city in a smart way so that you can walk and cycle everywhere. So this is still a bit of a dream because these green corridors are planned, they are on paper, but only one is actually achieved, and the photos are of a second one which shall be, I believe, finished throughout 2021. Which is connecting that forest park that I told you about in the beginning to the river. And so you have two sides of what the corridor is looking like. And on the right, you see actually a landmark of this area where the corridor goes through, which is also an interesting example of, a green roof. I've read it's actually the largest green roof in Europe. And this is a wastewater treatment station that lays here beneath all this green. And well, since we are talking about wastewater treatment, let me jump to the subject of water. As I mentioned earlier, so one of the major projects in this area is the creation of a network for reused water. So the idea is to increase the use of reused water. We know that we will have a lot of pressure on this particular resource in years to come. And so it makes a lot of sense to create ways to use water more than once in order to save the resource of drinking water for what's necessary. And so the wastewater treatment station that you just saw, along with two others in the city, will be recycling wastewater coming from households and a network, so a new infrastructure is under construction, connecting, so providing ways for this reused water to get to different parts of the city and be used for cleaning streets and also for irrigation of public spaces. So in terms of energy, I will just focus on one particular point that I think is actually the main challenge for Portugal, for Lisbon, because because there is a lot of buildings which where Lisboners are living, Lisboners and well all the surrounding areas, as I told you before, which are of very low quality construction. And so in the end, they don't really protect you very well against cold and against heat in the summer. And this is a big issue because it is combined with the fact that actually electricity prices are quite high in Portugal. And we also have, for a large chunk of the population, very low salaries. And so you have this situation that creates this thing of energy poverty. We are definitely one of the European countries where this situation is the most preoccupying. And I think a challenge to come is, of course, we need to reduce our consumption of energy. And but at the same time, we need to create conditions for people to enjoy a higher thermal comfort, because for a lot of families in Portugal, this is really an issue. And so I think this is really the challenge to come. And I mean, of course, an intervention in terms of the of isolation in homes is absolutely necessary, but this is something in such a large scale, and where so many families don't really have the resources to pay for those interventions themselves, that I really wonder if we will be able to develop ambitious policies that will help those changes, those interventions to be made on such a large scale. In terms of mobility, I'm highlighting here the fact that we now have, as several other European capitals, a bike sharing system. So our system has electrical along non-electrical bikes, but since Lisbon is very hilly, it makes a lot of sense to have electrical bikes in this system. During 2020, so more cycling lanes were added, and a number of new bikes will be made available throughout 2021, I think 700 or 800, something like that, which is good because there's for now still only a small part of the city that really has access to these bikes. At the same time, the municipality is giving incentives to the acquisition of bikes. So if we are deciding to buy a bicycle now, the municipality will cover a part of the cost. In terms of mobility, this is something which would have been great, but actually did not happen. So it's on hold, let's say. But a part of downtown Lisbon was going to be intervention in a way that would create pedestrian streets like the one you see in the picture, or reduce traffic quite a lot. This was a very nice project of the European Green Capital, but it did not happen. And this is mainly connected to the consequences of the pandemic on commerce in downtown Lisbon. So the municipality says, and it does make sense, that creating now a construction site all over downtown when commerce is already suffering so much from the loss of tourism and just less consumption in general, this would be certainly not very well received by shop owners. And so it is on hold. Let's see if at a later stage there are conditions to actually do this. I think this kind of intervention is important. I think, as you see on the right, there's still a culture of, you know, like the omnipresence of the car, and everything is acceptable because cars are still very valued, and there's a lot of tolerance for situations such as that, in which cars are just parked on the sidewalk, which drives me nuts. But there isn't much going on to prevent this kind of situation. So there's definitely a lot of work to do still on the culture of mobility and of evolving towards a more cyclist-free and pedestrian-friendly, cyclist-friendly and pedestrian-friendly city. In terms of waste, so I'm highlighting also the efforts being done at the present time in order to install return systems for packaging, especially beverage packaging. So this is supposed to happen actually nationwide until 2022. In Lisbon, there are at this point 11 collection points. So this is something that has existed for years in other cities, but for us, this is just starting the possibility to bring back beverage containers made of plastic, made of glass and metal, and receiving a voucher that you can use at the supermarket, or choosing to donate the value to charity. This is also a possibility. Another area in which we are going to advance a lot, I hope, in the next years is the management of organic waste. So right now, there is no separate collection for households. So the separate collection of organics does exist, but only for hotels and restaurants that wish to participate. But a system will be implemented actually also throughout the whole national territory until the end of 2023. And in Lisbon, efforts are being made now to promote composting, either in individual households and also at neighborhood level with infrastructures such as the one you see, these community bins. Just very recently, 15 new community bins have been installed. And this is part of also an important project in circular economy, of which Lisbon is a part, this FORCE project here. Well, and in terms of food waste and the whole theme of organic waste, it is, I think, very interesting to see that in Lisbon you have a large scale, very successful projects such as these that I chose to share with you. On the left, you see ReFood. This is a network of volunteers that collect surplus from restaurants and cafes and also supermarkets, and then distribute them, donate them to families in need. So this started in 2011 and it really grew very fast. This was a very agile movement that created a lot of local groups. So just in the Lisbon area, there are over 30 of them and many more in the rest of the country. It's a really efficient, costless way of finding a way to use all of this food that would have created waste if not for such a network. So another very valuable project is the one you see on the right. So this is about preventing food waste on another moment of the value chain. So this is about producers of fruits and vegetables that have surplus production that is harder to sell because the fruits and vegetables are not pretty or too big, too small, stained or something like that. And so these are harder to sell to regular supermarket chains. And so there's this initiative. It's a cooperative that buys all this produce from local producers and then has a distribution system of weekly boxes of seasonal fruits and vegetables that are distributed then in some points. This also grew a lot in the last years, and there are now a number of distribution points in Lisbon and in Porto, in the north of Portugal. And this project has been showcased everywhere and has even won Best Life Project of 2020. And that was it for Lisbon. I will just now briefly let you know about Circular Economy Portugal, which is the organization of which I'm a member. We exist since end 2016, and well, we aim to do different things. Of course, with the main purpose of promoting a circular economy, making it happen in practice. So, of course, one major activity is, of course, knowledge sharing. We look a lot like Tondo in the types of actions that we do in order to promote the concept. So here you see pictures of an event we organized a couple of years ago, and it was about mapping the existing circular economy initiatives in Lisbon and bringing people together. So this is a typical kind of thing that we try to do. We also produce knowledge. Here, this is an example of a study we developed about social reuse, in which we also try to identify organizations in the third sector that have some kind of circular economy activity, especially in the reuse of resources such as used clothes, so textiles, furniture, electrical appliances, electronics, all of this. This is actually an important focus point for us, the connection between circular economy and social economy. We try to promote bridges between these two, also because we believe, and we have proof also because of recent research, that they can strengthen each other. As this very good example of an organization called Entreajuda, that is a platform that collects materials mainly donated by companies, actually large companies. And so these materials are, for instance, office furniture, whenever a company decides to change office or something, computers and other kinds of electronic equipment which are replaced, updated, but actually the computers that are no longer needed, they're actually still quite good, they are functioning. And so this kind of material flow from these companies is actually a great opportunity for reuse. And so this platform, they collect all of this. They have some maintenance and repair activities that then, and of course, lots of logistics that then allow all of these equipments and goods to be reused by third sector institutions, so by charities, either for their own offices or needs, or these objects and resources, they can also be used for the beneficiaries of these third sector organizations. And so what this organization provides is really a large scale reuse of resources with a social purpose. And so a social purpose and a social impact, but also the modus operandi is also social in the sense that it relies a lot on volunteers, but it also creates job opportunities for people with some kind of vulnerability, such as handicap or long-term unemployment. So it's a full example of how the circular economy and solidarity economy can marry and prosper. So another important activity for us is demonstration of how circular economy can happen in practice and in different contexts. You may be familiar with the concept of the repair cafe. It's something that was invented in the Netherlands, and it's about promoting repair activities and the culture of repair, especially applied to household appliances or small electric and electronic objects that are so easily in today's culture replaced by a new object, because sometimes it's cheaper and it's just more convenient to buy something new. And so these events in which volunteers repair objects from consumers, citizens that want to bring them, and also that want to learn something about repair so that maybe next time they can actually solve the problem themselves at home. So these kind of events are really, or have proven to be a really interesting way to promote this culture of reuse, of repair, and to show that there are alternatives to fulfilling our needs, which are not an act of consumption, another act of consumption, which of course implies the consumption of more virgin material, and with all the impacts that we know. This is another example of the projects that we try to promote and support. This is about the conversion of, well, an abandoned piece of land in the city into an agroforest. So this is still ongoing. The conversion and the application of these agroforestry techniques also comprised regular workshops, so that people from the neighborhood where this took place, but also from the whole city of Lisbon, could learn about these techniques. And it's also an interesting example of how this land that was just ignored and dirty is now or can be seen as this kind of living pantry of this social neighborhood where it is happening. So another good example of the kind of interventions that you can have within a city to make it well, greener, more productive, and more friendly. Another example of the projects we do, this one is in textiles. It's about also raising awareness and inviting people to participate in the reuse of their own wardrobe, because a lot of us have just a lot of clothes at home that we don't use anymore for different reasons, and these clothes and other textiles can become raw materials, secondary raw materials for just new clothes or other uses for these textiles. So this is a group of designers and seamstresses that regularly creates opportunities for people also to transform their old clothes and learn to do that themselves. And the third aspect of our work at Circular Economy Portugal is the network. So and this is like the most recent aspect and the less developed aspect of our work. We are now trying to actively bring together circular pioneers, so entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, which are trying to develop businesses, activities in which a circular strategy is at the core. So our aim is to bring them together to promote their activities and to actively lobby for better policies, more incentives, better conditions for these activities to prosper and to really grow and make a difference. This is an example of that kind of network activity that we try to do. So bringing different actors together. So the seamstresses and designers of this collective called Recostura, they had this idea of trying to develop a medium-sized upcycling business based on an existing social business in Holland called Van Hully. So we also identified a source of used textiles that could be the raw material for this social business, and we identified investment opportunities, and we brought all of this together, but this is still an ongoing process because, well, for this particular investment opportunity it did not work out, but that's how it goes with business development, with social business development. So we will continue working and looking for opportunities to make it happen, because that's also part of our job at Circular Economy Portugal. And well, I guess that's it. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to stop sharing.
Great, thank you, Andrea. Thank you, was really nice and enlightening, discovering all the projects that you are doing in Portugal. And yeah, let's hope we can also develop a project together. Let's wait for it, and let's cross finger and wait. Thanks again for participating to our webinar. And apart of the project, probably you can also think about other different kind of activity we can do together. We're also evaluating other courses at European level. So let's see.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to share our activity and also all of this information about Lisbon. It allowed me to learn and to recall some of the stuff as well, which was cool.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks again. Have a nice day. And
you too. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.